Good evening, everyone. I would like to begin the City of Delaware Shade Tree Commission meeting for May 23rd, 2017, and we'll begin with roll call, please.
Ms. Brewster?
Here.
Mr. Buck? Mr. Wolver?
Here.
Ms. Woodmeek? Vice Chairwoman Wright?
Here.
Chairman Owen?
Here.
Motion to excuse. Have we heard from Jim Buck or it's not graduated, right? She will not
Right.
be with us anymore.
She graduated.
She is graduated. She's officially still on till.
Okay. I move to excuse those two individuals.
Second. Roll call, please.
Ms. Brewster?
Yes.
Mr. Carey?
Yes.
Mr. Glissman?
Yes.
Mr. Wolver?
Yes.
Ms. Woodmeek?
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Wright?
Yes.
Chairman Owen?
Yes. Okay, that brings us to item number 2, approval of motion summary for meeting held April 25th, 2017, as recorded and transcribed.
I move that the motion summary from the April 25th meeting be approved.
Second.
Okay, vote please.
Ms. Brewster?
Yes.
Mr. Carey?
Yes.
Mr. Glissman?
Yes.
Mr. Wolver?
Yes.
Ms. Woodmeek?
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Wright?
Yes.
Chairman Owen?
Yes. Okay, no members of the public are present tonight, so that brings us right to item number 4, discussion of community outreach programs, namely the Now Festival, which is what, June 10th? Saturday, June 10th, 12 to 3. And Susan, are we successful in getting people signed up?
I
yet?
have a sign-up list right here, which I'm going to pass
Great.
out.
That's great. Okay. So we'll
I'll
get
start
that.
down here.
Yeah, we'll get that rolling.
I just want to put Saturday on here. So
12 to 3 is when it opens.
Couldn't find the house, so I wasn't aware.
And as we talked about this a little bit before, I'm going to bring some educational materials and like posters. And let's see, excuse me for a minute here. I'm going to be there for like the whole thing, I think. And we talked about some other activities for kids. Do we still have coloring supplies and all that? So are we going to be able to have 2 tables instead of just 1 table? And I think 2 tables worked in the past.
Okay, I'll
And
make a request.
If we can get
I'll
2,
email you.
okay, 2 tables and maybe 4 chairs. How many chairs do you think we would need if kids are going to sit there and color? 6?
6 total.
6 chairs. And then the usual material, where's our equipment, the Shade Tree Commission equipment?
I've got it.
Okay.
Dave Carey picked it up from the Rained Out First Friday event.
Oh, that's right.
Delivered it to me.
Okay.
And I looked through everything. I know what we have. I don't think there's anything that's needed before that day.
Okay.
Are we going to give out trees? What's left over?
The trees are alive. The trees are fine.
Great.
I'm gonna have to drop them off to somebody.
I can,
I'm gonna be on the way to North Carolina on the 10th.
yeah, we can do it like last time. You can drop them off on my front porch and,
Yep,
you know.
Thursday or Friday.
Okay, that's great. If you do that, that's great.
Tom, you're a question mark, is that?
Yeah, I gotta double check on.
Okay, and then Jim, we don't know about Jim
Yeah.
yet. He usually likes to be involved in these things too. So Jim is a question mark.
I'll fill in the blanks here officially and send it out probably a week before the event, just as a reminder, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
And I'll have
thanks.
all the stuff, I'll deliver. And I think that's it.
Okay, yeah, I'll be there early with my truck, and the tables will be in that 3-season room probably, that 3-season shelter or something like that.
I will
That's what
find
we-
out for you. I'm
Okay.
actually not sure how you've set it up before.
We just sort of wing it every year. I think, yeah, the tables they had in those the 3-season shelter, and then we just got it out of there, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, and we return them to the self-same place after the event.
Okay.
So that would work out fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So then the question is, besides our usual information, maybe a little bit extra educational materials, some coloring activities, was there anything we wanted to do? We discussed something about like a scavenger hunt. Is anyone interested in designing and implementing a scavenger hunt dealing with tree leaves or something like that, or?
I feel like Pinterest, I feel like the Girl Scouts and even Preservation Parks, when we were there with the Boy Scouts, have a sheet that's really cool, already put together, and you don't even have to gather the items, you just find them.
They also had, last year, they gave us a stamp.
Yeah.
And so there was a card that folks took around. If they got every station stamped, then I don't know what they got. but
They entered, they were qualified for the drawing for a rain barrel, I think.
Nice.
I think, yeah, a hand-painted rain
So
barrel.
my point in mentioning that is whether or not we want to do anything on top of that. Since
Sort of
they already have that
it would be
going.
like a competing thing.
Oh, I see what you're saying. We don't want to have an activity that is too much like their
Yeah.
already existing activity, right?
Ted, is Parks and Rec going to be there?
I don't think they have planned on going to that.
Okay.
The one thing that I think would be good from something that you had suggested, Ted, with having some sort of display for different trees that show their benefits,
Yeah.
right? And that would be a good venue for that because
Well,
they're doing it in
yeah,
a
'cause
Yeah,
number
that
of,
wouldn't be hard to make up.
You had an example of
Yeah,
that earlier that we all saw.
yeah, I can get that ready.
That would be very cool if you, like, for maybe like a typical street tree.
oh, well, I was just thinking,
Or-
since you could do it for the trees that are actually there on site, right? So
Oh, that's a great
folks could
idea. Real
yeah, there's some
life.
really nice big oaks in there and that sort of thing as well.
Right, right. This
And then,
tree,
not to preclude a typical street tree, but, you know what I mean?
no, I think that's a great idea because there are some big oaks there that provide a lot of benefit, environmental services, and then they're seeing it in the flesh, so to speak, in vivo, and then they can see the kind of information Ted can create, put together. That's great. Okay, yeah, let's stick with that. Anybody else have any other ideas?
What about with the crayons and paper doing bark rubbings on the trees? I mean, that's really fun for younger kids. I mean, I'm not sure how incredibly informative it is, but,
If it's fun, let's do it.
I mean, we'll have crayons there.
I'm not an expert at working, I'm used to working with at-risk teenagers, so I don't know all these activities you guys have.
Yeah, just tree rubbings. They're fun. You just put the paper on the tree, run the crayons
Can-
over, and then you see the,
Can you be in charge of that?
no, because I will be, I will be out of town. I will be at a cabin
Oh,
in
okay.
Mohican. I miss this every year. I've lived here in Delaware. That's the weekend I go away.
The weekend is even better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I need a
okay.
vacation.
So we can add some, I'm gonna write down posters, coloring books, or coloring pages. We have that. We have the tree value. What is that, a poster that you're going to have?
Yeah, it'll be like 24 by 36.
Okay, 24, 36. Like a trifold or something like that?
Yeah, it might be individual boards.
Okay. Poster. And our basic information that we always have for the general public.
Yep.
Okay, that's good. I mean,
There's one thing I was going to ask about if you guys used previously, a year or two ago when we developed these handouts, we have, let me see if I can find it, Delaware Tree Stewardship Volunteer Program explanation. Remember when we were trying to get that off the
And we
ground?
weren't sure whether it was still
Yeah, so I was just going to
active.
ask if I could just delete those. from
Yeah.
the-
Yeah,
Okay.
and even in our latest report, I think in the latest annual report, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, we
Right.
said that it's kind of on the back burner now because, okay. Because, yeah, that never took off the way we thought it might have, so. Okay, I think that's good. We'll have our usual presence there, and it's only 3 hours, so, I mean, it's not like we have to. And we're giving away trees too, I gotta write that down. Tree giveaway. Are they still looking pretty green? They're not like getting,
Yeah, they're good. I put them in soil.
oh,
They're-
okay.
I haven't checked the roots, so maybe good luck trying to tease them apart by that time. But I separated them a little bit.
Even if we get some soil in with the, in the plastic bags, that's
Yeah, that's no
okay.
problem.
So we have enough plastic bags?
Mhm.
Okay.
I do want the pot back. It doesn't belong to me.
Oh, okay.
They're in.
Okay, how big is a pot?
It's like a 15 gallon.
Okay. Well, I can either drive that out to, put it behind the greenhouse out where you work, or, I can just leave it on my front porch, or,
Either way, just let me
okay,
know where it's at.
all right.
Let me good.
Okay, so it sounds like, unless anybody can think of anything else, it sounds like we're good for the Now Festival. We've done this is what, our 3rd year doing it, 4th year doing it, so shouldn't be any big deal. Okay, so if there's nothing else on that, we come to item number 5, discussion of Chapter 1168, Tree Preservation Regulations of the Planning and Zoning Code, which has been a real, real eye-opener for me here lately. And basically what I'd like to start out the discussion by saying is that this is an opportunity. This is like a historic opportunity. Tom, you've been around here for a while, and Susan and Dave.
Are you calling me historic? Well, that's what-
Yeah, prehistoric.
No, he's calling you old.
Oh, yeah. But this is a historic opportunity for the Shade Tree Commission to really do something significant that could impact the future of the quality of life in our community for many, many years to come. So I think we should take our time with this and not be in a rush. And, you know, I want to make sure that everyone gets enough time to think about it and make their recommendations and talk about, you know, their perception of the whole situation and what they think is the right thing to include in Chapter 68. And of course, Jim, we'll have to give Jim a chance to get back up to speed on this at the next meeting. So we're not going to finish this tonight. So at least I don't think so. I seriously doubt it. I would like to start first by just telling everyone that I made notes from the previous, not last night's, but the previous city council meeting, which inspired me. So I'll talk about that later. And then that developments after that inspired me to look at 1168. Thank you for sending that along, Ted. To look at it line by line, and I have made notes and recommendations on the entire thing. And but first, why don't we let Ted explain the perspective, the city, the municipal government perspective on all this before we make our own observations or recommendations. And if you're not ready, if you haven't had time to think about it yet, that's fine. We're not going to finish this tonight. So what I'm thinking maybe we could do, is kind of an unusual situation, is talk about discuss item number 5 for a certain amount of time. Then when we get to a stopping point that we all agree on, proceed to 6, 7, 8, and then the adjournment, or just sort of play it by ear for now. Because I don't want to be here till like midnight tonight. I don't think any of us do.
Good idea.
Is that-
Yeah, I'm out on that one.
So when we get to a good stopping point, we could just say, okay, let's put this aside for now, and then head to items 6, 7, and 8 and finish up. Does that sound good?
Fair enough, I think.
Okay. Okay, Ted,
Well, thanks, Paul.
take it away.
So, at our last, I guess it was 2 council meetings ago, we updated 116807 of the, which that really came about because we had a tree bank fund that we weren't really having clear direction on where we could spend that money. We had a backlog of street trees that was sitting there, and we weren't it just wasn't clear how we could spend that money in tree bank fund. It was truly meant to replace street trees. So by updating that code, we were able to use that tree bank fund to start replacing street trees. And this fall, I think about 100 street trees left to replace. So we will be caught up with street trees. And what that does is allows us, like as we talked before, allows us to replace street trees and maintain them for a year. Now, I know there's some discussion about the elimination of the tree caliper inch, which was eliminated, but I think that's probably beneficial because that really should be in the fee structure. And being in the fee structure allows it to be updated every year. That fee structure is reviewed every year in the fall. So that's probably, and I really do think that is the place for that fee when it should be put in fall so that it can be updated every year. If it was in this section, we'd have to update this section. Yep, go ahead.
I just want to remind everyone, excuse me for interrupting, but as I mentioned in an earlier email, in order to ascertain that the fees will not change and they're not going to be changed based on previous statements made by
Nothing has
city
changed.
council, I formally asked our city attorney for a public records request regarding all tree bank fund payments, billing and payments from, I think I said May 10th, from that date forward, so that any payments made into that tree fund will have a record of, to make sure that they are still charging $100 per caliper.
Yeah, that has not changed.
Right.
That is still exactly the same as before this even went through. But it will be good to get it in the fee structure so that it just like everything else, prices go up. And
Yeah, I calculated that, and
yeah,
that's part of my
so
notes.
in 2 years, that may want to change again, and having it in the fee structure allows it to be reviewed every year. Having it in the code itself, you saw how long it took that code. I think we started this last fall to get the code, that one segment of the code updated. So having it in the fee structure is more beneficial than having it in this section of the code anyway. So I think that'll be a good, but again, like Paul said, nothing has changed in that. So that's going to continue as it has been. That has not changed. But as you mentioned, the overall code 1168 is it's a chance to take a look at this and make recommendations to City Council. And there are, I was looking at the dates in this. There's been some updates here and there, but I mean, for the most part, I think this code was originally passed in 2004,
Right.
which is a fairly significant. I mean, it's over 10 years ago. So there's probably a chance now to take a look at some of these things, and things change, and obviously looking at them and seeing what items could be updated. But I think most importantly is that the board has a goal in mind. How do they feel overall of the tree preservation code? Is it too stringent? Is it stringent enough? Is it just right? Identifying that, and then, you know, once we can identify what goals you'd like to achieve out of this, then we can kind of zero in on, well, this will help achieve that goal. If we change this, if we can achieve that goal. If you have some overall impressions of what do you think of the code, if you've had a chance to review it, and what you'd like to see out of the code, then I think this would be a good time for that discussion. So with that,
Let me just, one point of clarification. You said to zero in on 1168.07 because that was what the council was considering?
that's what we passed.
Okay, so what
The
is
changes
in
to
front
that.
of us? What is in front of us is part of this page 5 and 6? No, just, where is it? It starts on 5.
Let me see what you guys are looking at.
No, it's just, okay, it's just that section.
It's just
Yeah,
that
section
section.
Okay.
1168.01.
This is the new word, this is what they have approved, correct?
I don't think that. I think that's still the old one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I didn't
Yeah,
see.
it
I
looks
was
like
looking
all
for the
04.
I was looking for 2017 on here somewhere. I didn't
You're
see
right,
it, so.
okay, so just, I want to clarify that what
Yeah,
we're looking
definitely.
at
That-
is still the
Yeah,
old
that is
version.
still the old one. And yeah, that's the replacement of the removed tree. So yeah, that has been updated. It hasn't been updated in this website or where this document came from yet. Yep, that's good. So if I don't know, Paul, have you? Yeah, I know you had some notes, and does anyone else want to start us off?
I just have some clarification points here.
Okay.
So every time they mention the director of planning and community development, that is Dave Eflin in his current position, right?
Correct.
I've never heard at community development part of it, but. So when they talk about facilities and grounds, director of grounds and facilities, is that you?
Yeah, they used to have two people, director of grounds control and director of recreation. So that'll be part of any updates.
Okay, there were just a couple of places where it says the director of planning was going to oversee this or approve it or whatever, and I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be better to be you.
Yeah, or even some places, Doug, our arborist,
Yeah.
our city arborist.
I put that in several of these as a recommendation, changing it from the Director of Planning and Development to I put in city arborist because I thought that
Yeah,
was
I
referring to Stacy and not you. I didn't know that it was referring. Should be, I would think either you or Doug. and
Yeah, I would
definitely not the
probably
Director of
say
Development.
Doug in a lot of these, instead of director of grounds and facilities. Because there used to be, and that role's
Oh,
kind of
that
filled
was
by
done when
Steve Beard.
Steve Beard was here. Yeah, because he was the city arborist and the director of grounds.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. That explains.
You're more stoic than I am.
Quite possibly. Yes.
And I think this is my final question, but maybe not. So under 1168.07,
Mhm.
and the part letter B that talks about the tree bank option, if someone came to you tomorrow and said, we're going to opt for the tree bank option, Where is our tree bank or banks? Where are you?
We refer to those as parks, our parks, city-owned parks.
Okay,
Those are considered tree bank options. We haven't officially designated any other sites as tree bank options,
Okay.
but that could be a possibility if there was a piece of land that we wanted that was just designated as a preserve or something like that. We could designate that as a tree bank site.
okay.
But parks in generally is what that's referring to.
So they would be city-owned parks. They may not
Yes.
be, are all the neighborhood parks city-owned? Probably
Not all of them.
Yeah, so
Not
it
all
wouldn't
of them,
be,
yeah.
it would not necessarily be
HOA.
that. Okay.
If they were to go into somewhere like that, if a tree bank fund site wasn't owned by the city, we'd probably need to accompany it with like a conservation easement or something like that so that it would be protected. We haven't ran across that yet.
Okay. That's it for me for now.
Okay. Well, unless anyone else would like to begin, I'll start if that's okay with everyone. So I'm basically just going to go through this from 1168.01 and give my impressions of what needs to be either focused on or changed or both. And in 1168.01, the purpose, while allowing for reasonable development of lands, the city of Delaware, okay, obviously we have to keep in mind what our definition of reasonable development is. The BIA is going to have a much different definition of reasonable than perhaps we are. So just something to keep in mind, that's not well defined in 1168.01. I would like to also state that reasonable development does not imply maximizing development company profits and allowing their developments to create long-term costs to the community. And then in 1168.01 Part A, the benefits derived from tree preservation and replacement include the following, and I think all those are great, but in addition to those, we need to add reduced crime rate. And by the way, I have footnotes that support each one of these points that I'm adding. Research footnotes. Reduced crime rate would be number 8. 9 would be sequester greenhouse gases while producing oxygen. 10, increase consumer spending in commercial districts. And 11, create a sense of community and bring people together. I have citations for all those points. Going on to 1168.02.
Paul, sorry, what was your number 11 again?
Oh, that was the touchy-feely one. That was
Community.
Bringing people together.
Okay.
bringing people together.
Did you mention 9?
Pardon?
I went 8, 10, and 11, so.
Number
Oh,
9.
okay, number 9 was sequester greenhouse gases while producing oxygen.
What was 8 then?
8 was reduce crime rates.
Okay.
I can read them again. if you
No,
want.
I got it. I can
Okay.
listen to it. My numbers are wrong.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Everybody good so far? Okay, still in 1168.01. See, let me find this.
Top of the second page.
Oh, okay. To promote the preservation, replacement, and/or augmentation of trees that might be otherwise damaged or removed in the course of land development and building construction. So damaged or removed. This includes trees damaged by soil compaction, the signs of which do not become apparent for several years, especially with large trees. And OSU's done a lot of research on this. A lot of times, large trees do not show the physical signs of soil compaction for 6, 7 years, but they can still determine that that was the cause of the decline of the tree and in some cases the death of the tree. So we have to keep that in mind when we are considering, the implications of development, because if it is damaged or removed, these trees, they may not right away be visibly damaged, but they could be damaged further on down the road. So does that mean that in 6 or 7 years, the developer has to replace a 20-inch caliper tree, 20 caliper inches? Just something to consider. I'm going kind of quickly now, just so that everyone gets an idea of some of the implications of this stuff.
I think the best way to deal with that possibility is to, if a tree is to be preserved, its root structure should be protected during construction
At the onset.
with some,
Of the project.
usually they put up orange snow fencing or something like that to protect those root zones, keep heavy
Yeah,
equipment off of them. And that's something that we've suggested in the past. And
and it doesn't
if we're
always,
doing this now, that would be an excellent thing to consider putting into
Right.
this code.
but it also includes changing grade in like putting fill on
Yeah,
top.
that's in here somewhere.
Yeah, that is, and I've got that written down. It's in a later section
All
too.
right. But
So,
maybe the compaction piece could be added to that piece, maybe.
right.
Okay.
Right, so, okay, so I've got that part there. Then going on to 1168.02A, they're talking about 6-inch diameter breast height trees or above being significant trees. And I happen to think that trees smaller than 6-inch DBH are significant as well. I was trying to get a feel for that just by looking at some trees around town. I don't know if we should consider lowering that to 5 inches or maybe even 4 inches, or if you think 6 inches DBH is adequate, or should they be responsible for additional trees? Because that's been taking place in Delaware over the last 20 years. I've been here 25 years, and there's been a bunch. And one of my questions to city council and whoever is, what is our percentage of canopy loss over the past 25 years? When we know that, we'll know maybe about how many trees we've lost. So if we've lost quite a number of trees, then maybe perhaps significant trees now, instead of being 6 inches DBH, maybe with considering the loss of trees that we've had in the past 20 years, maybe now it's time to consider a 5-inch DBH tree as a significant tree. Just a thought. These are things that have been going through my mind as I look through this. So I made a note on that. We don't have to make decisions right now. I just, want to let you guys know what I was thinking. But feel free to challenge me on this stuff if you want.
Well, since this is an invitation.
Yeah, of course, Tom. Go
I'm
ahead.
not challenging you.
Okay.
But clearly, if you went that route, 5 inches, 4 inches, use that as a definition for a quote-unquote major tree, inevitably there would be pushback, from the industry, from BIA people, etc.
Right.
And that suggestion may not be palatable, to developers.
Right. My goal is not
Yeah,
to
that's not
determine
our-
palatability
Yes,
right now.
I perfectly understand it, but it's something to consider.
Oh, I have already considered that. Yeah, I understand that. In doing this, I was considering, this is almost like brainstorming exercise for me. I'm not considering how practical it is from the BIA point of view. I'm considering it from for the well-being of the community, well-being of trees into the future. So palatability to those guys is a different, but you're right. Yeah, that's something that we have to eventually take into consideration. Okay, going down to C, the fee schedule. We all know about that. That's got to happen. Okay, first thing in this, I do not think that the Director of Planning and Community Development should be able to waive the fee requirement for permits involving 10 trees or less. At first I thought, well, maybe Doug should be the one to make that determination, or Ted. But then I thought to myself, well, maybe no one should be making that determination. Maybe that should not be allowed, because that would enable, if you had let's say a half-acre lot and you had 10 100-year-old oak trees on that lot, and they were 24, each of them were 24 or 36-inch oak trees that were 100, 125 years old. Well, according to this, every one of them could be cut down at the discretion of the Director of Planning and Community Development, and we would lose 10 150-year-old oak trees without any replacement whatsoever. So I am calling that into question. And as far
Well,
as,
hang on, Paul.
yeah,
This C is regarding the permit only, not replacement schedule.
oh, did I misread that one?
If I'm reading this right, it's just referring to a permit.
Well, a clearance permit.
Yeah.
So that
Which
doesn't mean that they
that
can just
doesn't-
go in and clear them?
Yeah, that doesn't have anything to do with the replacement schedule. That's just, there's a permit required because somebody has to go out and look at those trees.
Okay, maybe I misinterpreted that one then. Okay.
So it's talking about a waiver of the fee to just get the permit.
To get the permit.
Okay,
Right.
that brings up another point. Is there an actual written permit?
Yes,
Okay, and is there a cost of flat rate?
I believe so, and I'm not sure what that cost is,
Okay,
but yes.
doesn't matter if it's 1 acre or 100 acres, it's just a flat? Okay.
No, it's anything over 2 acres.
Yeah, but it's a flat fee regardless of
Right.
the
But
size.
the minimum, anything
Okay,
under
okay.
any lot under 2 acres is exempt
Okay.
from this
Oh, gotcha,
whole thing.
okay.
Okay, so then I understood C then. So I don't have to worry about 10 oak trees getting cut down and then not being replaced. Okay.
Well, if they're on a 1 acre
If they're on
lot,
a
then
1
yes,
acre.
you probably do.
Okay, see that? Yeah.
But if it's for a development purpose, right? If that's your concern, odds are it's more than a 2 acre lot, but, you know. So basically, I think the 2 acres is designed to exclude homeowners from having to go through a permitting and replacement schedule because the tree in their backyard is,
Mhm.
they're wigged out because it's leaning towards their house at some point.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Okay, I'll move on then. By the way, the fee, let's see, for Clarence Tree Bank Fund. Where did I get? Okay, the 116802C, is that where I still am? Yeah. Right now, I got in touch with Linda, and she says that the earliest record of them charging $100 per caliper inch goes back to 2009. So I calculated over the past 15 years what the rate of increase after adjusting for inflation would be, and that would be to add another $15. So I would propose that instead of $100 per caliper inch, we start charging $115 per caliper inch. And that would technically not be an increase. That would just be an adjustment for inflation.
But that is not part of this ordinance.
That's not
That's in the
part of
fee
this.
structure, right?
Okay, yeah, but when we get, but it,
Yeah.
when
okay.
they talked about collecting fees, and that's what made me think of this. So when we get to that section, I think there's another section that talks about that some more. I wanted to run that by you because I just thought about that, and this is where it appears in my notes. So anyway, that would just be to adjust for inflation. Okay. Let's see. Now, 116804, okay. 116804, B, directors of grounds and facilities or designee shall approve the caliper, species, and health of all proposed replacement trees. I was thinking that should be the city arborist, but.
That's how it's typically done now.
Yeah, okay.
That would be his designee, though, so that's okay.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, I just wanted to make that clear because I thought the director of grounds and facilities was referring to Stacy, and, you know, with all due respect, I didn't think Stacy had the technical knowledge that either Doug or Ted do, but I just figured that it would be best, since we have a certified arborist, that he would be the person. We should have that in the language here. Okay, then on to 116805, tree replacement plan. In number 1, the city may at its discretion accept an estimate of the number and size of trees on a site when the site exceeds 3 acres. Who is the city in this sentence? Who's the person that makes at its discretion? Do we know? I'm hoping it's Doug or Ted.
It's typically Dave Eflin if the plan is completed by a certified arborist. And if the consultant doesn't have a certified arborist, then Doug will come into play on that. So if, well, the good example is the hospital site. They had a certified arborist go out and verify the trees.
Mhm.
And that certified arborist signed the plan and submitted it. So that is acceptable to the city as opposed, and if they didn't have that luxury, then we want Doug to verify that.
Right, so
They could submit a tree plan, but not certified by an arborist, then we would have Doug take a look at that and then certify that. He'd go out and check that and verify that it's correct.
okay, that's good. That's good, because when it just says the city may, you know, I was just wondering
Yeah, I
who
think
that is.
I think Dave would probably would say that same thing similar to that because that's how it's done now is we want it certified by an arborist.
Okay, and then all the identification of all the tree preservation areas, all major trees to be removed, basically, you know, and then the location, common name, size of all replacement trees. That should all be done not by Dave Eflin, but by Doug.
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
okay.
And I think the top right underneath 116805, instead of director of grounds and facilities, we would replace that with certified city arborist,
Yeah.
and that would kind of cover everything in there.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay, I'll write that into certified city arborist.
Would you expect any pushback on that from,
No,
From
we can pretty much
council.
do that right now.
yeah,
That's
I mean, well, it sort of implies that the city would be required to have a certified arborist
yeah,
on staff.
yeah.
I think we're big enough as a city that
I-
that's
yeah, I
a
think
reasonable thing to do.
I know. I was thinking about the same thing. Whether when if someday we don't have a certified arborist, but I don't know that day's coming. I think that we'll always have a certified arborist. I shouldn't say we can't ever say ever, but I can't imagine us not having that at this point. Yeah, Dave, I was thinking of the same thing. It was just because you want to have that flexibility if things change, but I don't think that will change.
It might exist on an interim basis, like
Yeah. Well,
temporary.
you know, if that was the case, then if someone wanted to submit a tree replacement plan, they would have to have it certified by an arborist if we didn't have one on staff yet, or we were in an interim basis. Or otherwise, they'd have to wait till the interim basis was over with them. We had one.
Okay, then, let's see, 1168.06, removal of major trees. Again, you know, that director of planning and community development thing again, so that's the same issue. But what I would like more clarification on here is, may approve the cutting down, removal, or destruction of a major tree when the tree interferes with the proper development of the lot. Proper development, I don't understand what that means. Again, that's pretty subjective, and I would like some more clarification on it.
We can clarify that, but I would assume that would mean within zoning. So like the proper setbacks, front, side setbacks, and every
Physical parameters.
it complied with zoning. You know, that's what I would assume by proper development, but we can clarify that.
When it says though may approve, does that mean approve without the reimbursement?
That would be part of the approval process. I don't think you'd approve it without, unless the only exception is if the tree's dying or it presents a safety hazard. That
Which would be covered under another part of this.
Yeah, so there'd be an exception there, but that would be part of the permit. So if they wanted to add an addition to the house or some house that was within zoning code, but it required removal of a tree, then there would have to be, you know, mitigation in that instance. Does that make sense? But we can clarify proper development and what that specifically means.
Right, because then it comes up again later, but then in that same paragraph, they talk variance or conditional use permit, and I'm not sure, this is a different set of, you know, different ordinance, different chapter, and this came up when the BA guy, Hills, was here a few meetings ago. He wanted clarification about what our variance procedure was, and I think maybe we need to know when and how and why variances are granted to all this stuff. Because variances, correct me if I'm wrong, Ted, but variances are an agreement that says basically, okay, you don't have to follow Chapter 1168, the tree replacement policy, because ...
Yeah, it's usually not going to be that broad on a variance. It's going to be more like if instead of a 15-foot setback, you want a variance for a 12-foot setback. That's going to be more variance, a specific variance to the actual code.
But what about like a variance of, okay, I don't want to pay $115 per caliper inch. I want to pay $35 per caliper inch.
Yeah, that's not really going to go. I mean, if we started approving those variances, everybody from the BIA would be coming in here and say, well, you approved it for him, and we'd have to approve.
That's exactly why.
In this case, I think the variance refers to the zoning code.
Yes.
You want to build a deck that doesn't have the proper setback to the lot line or something like that.
And there are variances granted in those situations where, you know, there's like a deck, you wanted to build it and didn't have the setbacks required. And in those, there are some situations where variances are granted in those areas, but
Most of those require adjacent property owner approval too. And so if everybody says yes, then go for it.
right.
Okay, so I think I
they're-
misread that a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, they're not going to give you a variance for that. You don't have to follow Chapter 1168. That's a
Well, that was a little bit radical.
yeah, but
I think a more crisp definition of what a variance is, you know, would be helpful.
It would help me,
Could be-
because I'm not sure
Could be
what it is.
interpreted as an exception, as a loophole for somebody.
And I think
that
that's
may
what
be
the
a visible
BIA
location.
guy was looking for.
But so, I think a clear definition of what is acceptable and what
Yeah.
is unacceptable, would be helpful.
Yeah, well, that's hard to, because there's so many different variances, you can't really define that. And that's why we have a planning commission who reviews those variances, applications, and council. A variance is difficult to define. It could be a lot of different things. That's good. That's going to be tough, but that's kind of why we have a planning commission, so that they can
But,
either
but
approve or
I-
deny a variance.
We also have a board and zoning appeals
Yeah.
board specifically for this stuff too.
Ted, if I understand you correctly, you are saying or implying that no variances are granted without the consent of the planning commission.
Or the board
At
of
a public
zoning appeals.
meeting.
Yes, yes.
Nothing, no, arrangements behind closed doors,
No.
under hidden,
No,
things. Okay, so that's reassuring to hear.
yes.
So if
Okay.
this variance is primarily just applying to zone
Yeah.
that they're discussing, can we put the word zoning in
I guess we probably could. I guess it's kind of, I guess, implied, or it's, I can check on that. Let me just see on that. I don't know if that's the correct way to clarify it by saying that, but we can check on
there
that.
without getting too complicated?
Yeah.
Okay. And then if you move just a couple items down, again, the desirable and logical development of the lot, I guess that, what does that mean? Under item 2, just 2 items down, the proposed structure cannot be located in a manner to avoid removal of the tree at the same time permit the desirable one. Well, I guess that doesn't really apply. So, yeah, that's okay. I misread that one, so we don't have to worry about that. But then getting down to B at the near the bottom of that same page, B, removal, a tree shall be deemed removed if one or more of the following occurs. And they talk about, damage to the inflicted root system by machinery, storage of materials, and or soil compaction. The natural grade is changed above or below the root system around the trunk. Damage is inflicted on the tree that will permit fungus or pest infestation. The tree is excessively pruned or thinned. Areas are paved with concrete, asphalt, or other impervious material within such proximity to trees as to be harmful to the tree. That includes a lot of stuff that I don't think we consider when we talk about tree removal in development right now. I think all we're talking about in tree removal, in the 3 or 4 years that I've been doing this, is just what they cut on the lot, or bulldoze on the lot. Who goes back and checks for this other stuff?
You're probably correct in that. We probably missed some of those here and there.
I think
It's difficult to do that.
Yeah, but it's part of, and I agree with all these, and they're all valid, and they do cause loss of trees, and technically that is a tree removal.
Yeah, but then also we are required to, if someone is going to remove a tree, we are required to issue a permit. And, when we do go back and issue that permit, usually that's Doug that goes out there, you can make that determination. Well, was it damaged during development? Was it damaged, was it inflicted during, when they installed the pavement or asphalt? So there is that we do go back and look at those. So, because they're required to get a permit when they remove a tree, even if we have to make that determination. Is it dead because of natural causes, or is it dead because of it was developed, the round? So I'm not saying we get every one of those, but I would say that's where that comes in, is when we issue that's part of the tree permit process.
So is your question when it's not part of the tree permit process?
Well, I'm just thinking that we don't count a lot of trees that have these things happen to them. We don't count them as being removed.
Right.
We're, right
So who's
now,
policing
that's my question.
during construction?
Right, that's my question. This stuff is happening, and according to the language of, of this document, these are removals. But what we have looked at is just, when they cut trees and then bulldoze, the site prep. So I agree that this is difficult to police, difficult to keep track of, but who knows how many caliper inches are lost to this kind of stuff that's harder to keep track of, is what I'm wondering.
Yeah, and I would like to ask Doug up a little bit more about that, because he's the one that would go out and review a permit of, questioning, why is this tree dead? Is it dead because of natural causes, or is it dead because of site prep?
Well, and a lot of these things trees take a long time to die.
Right, yeah.
And so the removal may take place 5 years after the development, but the cause is still, the removal still happened because of the development.
Mm-hmm.
So these are just some things that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention, and so that we can start thinking about this stuff. And I'm not saying I know what the right answer is. I'm just asking questions at this point.
So how does number 4 there, the tree is excessively pruned or thin, how does that fit in with the issues we've been having discussions with over time with AEP and their tree contractor?
That's a good question.
You mean, if a tree?
I mean, is there something, could you use this ordinance to go back to?
If they kill the tree because of excessive
Well,
pruning?
it doesn't say that it's dead. It say the tree shall be deemed removed
If it is excessively pruned or thin.
Yeah. So just for future reference, could we use that to say to Asplund, oh, you've removed these trees?
You removed a 24-inch caliper
Yeah.
tree.
I know that they have electrical companies have I think a national sort of statute of a certain,
I know, that's,
certain right of way around their
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
yeah.
But whether there is an exemption for local ordinances based on something that would be considered removal, that's a good question.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, they certainly have the right to prune those trees.
Because
and
this
keep the lines
doesn't,
clear.
yeah, and this
But-
doesn't say that the tree actually has to die.
Right. I noticed it.
Sorry.
Because, and we all know that we who have worked with trees, we know that the tree can be 90% dead. 90% of the tissue can be dead in the tree. And if it still has a few leaves, it may technically not be 100% dead, but it has lost its value in terms of providing environmental services. So,
Well, my sense of this ordinance is that it's designed to be enforced sort of at the time during construction. So if they're not protecting the root zones of major trees that they want to save, for example, whoever's doing code enforcement can say, all right, well, you've put this, by parking your earth movers under this tree for the last 5 weeks, you have now deemed this tree to no longer be a
Yeah.
but the
preserved
tree
tree,
won't be
and so you're on
dead
the
at
hook
that
for
time.
replacing. Well, it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
That's the beauty of this ordinance.
Oh,
right
gotcha,
here,
gotcha.
Is that
Okay.
at that time, someone from the city can go out and say, hey, this is no longer
You have removed this tree.
you have effectively removed this tree.
Right,
And so
gotcha.
you're on the hook for the caliper.
So who does that?
That's
Is that,
a good
is that
question.
the
Whoever's
city
in charge of
arborist?
zoning
That's typically
enforcement.
Doug, because you can't just remove a tree without getting a permit. So once that permit comes in, Dave will typically ask us,
No.
and then Doug has to.
Well, this is a different situation because they're not requesting a permit to park their
Right.
10-ton piece of equipment underneath the tree.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
piles of soil?
Or yeah, anything like that. So this is one, I know we've talked about this before, and there's a lot of discretion here, I guess.
Right, and we all know that we can't prove that tree's gonna die if you just by parking a pan underneath it because it may survive that.
Oh, it certainly
That's the
may.
tricky part of
But
this,
that's-
which is,
But we can come back at a later date when the tree is removed.
Well, that's
Or is-
not what the letter of this says, though.
What's it saying?
The letter of this says this tree is considered to be removed if soil compaction occurs, if all of these other
Or-
things occur.
yeah.
Whether the tree dies or not, it's considered to be removed.
or even the natural grade is changed above or below the root system or around the trunk. You know, and that's the complicated thing about trees take a long time to die, but, especially big trees, but it happens because of this kind of stuff.
So
A tree shall be deemed removed,
Yeah.
past tense.
I personally don't see any problem with the ordinance.
Yeah, I think
It's
it's,
an inconsistent sort of
Right.
enforcement of the ordinance, which I think is also kind of
the
fine.
notes that I wrote for this one is, many more trees removed than presently recorded.
Yeah.
There are many, according to this, there are many more trees that are removed than presently recorded.
That's
And
probably
over the
true.
last 25 years, we should probably have thousands of more dollars in our tree bank fund, if this had been adequately enforced, it sounds like to me. All right.
Yeah, I guess that's how you interpret that. And we can look into that. But I guess I look at it as a removed tree that we're going back after damage is noticed and the tree's dead or something. And we go back and we determine that it is dead because the grade was changed around it. And so then.
Well, maybe what's missing is a
Right.
timeline, because I feel as though if you're in the middle of a project or the very end of a project and we're going back through and saying, okay, you created significant damage and now this tree needs removed. But if we're going back a year later, the tree just needs removed.
But even, that's a good point, but even the timeline, according to this wording, is not, okay, a tree shall be deemed removed if one or more of the following occurs. And the first one, damage is inflicted to the root system by machinery, storage of materials, and/or soil compaction. It doesn't say anything about the tree dying. It says damage is inflicted to the root system. That's what it's talking about.
But I guess then you determine if it's 80% alive or 80% dead, or, at that point, whether it's going to be saved.
That's why we need to have this discussion. I mean, yeah, I agree that and maybe a timeline is part of this. But that's why we need, I don't think we can reconcile this tonight, but.
Maybe because it's too vague.
Oh, I
B is
disagree.
too vague.
I
I'm
don't-
asking.
No,
I don't
I
think
don't
vague's a
think it's
bad
vague
thing.
at all. I think it's counterintuitive to most folks. This tree is fully leafed out. It's fine. However, an arborist would say, considering what has just happened to this tree, it's not fine.
Mhm.
I think that's what this is trying to say.
Right. I have no problem with the way this is written at all. My concern was that many more trees have been removed than have been recorded as being removed. That's my problem with this, is not the wording of it or the substance of it. It's the fact that it hasn't been enforced, and that we should probably have a lot more money in our tree binning fund now, if theoretically, if this part had
So
been.
this is, I guess this is maybe where where it could be resolved is, okay, say 3 years down the road after a development has occurred, a tree that's say 10 inches DBH dies. And the property owner comes back and says, hey, this tree died, and can I go ahead and cut it down? Say, sure, go ahead, it's dead, please cut it down, it's a hazard. But at that point, since the damage occurred during development, who's on the hook for the 10 caliber inches of tree that died because of development? According to this ordinance, it should be assessed during development because that's when you can recoup your funds. If you try and recoup them 3 years down the road, who's on the hook for that? Probably nobody, right? It's just, okay, you have to replace this tree.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So this, and that kind of addresses what your concern was, Paul, with, well, we're getting all these trees dying due to development many years after the fact, when they should have been compensated for
Right,
at the time.
right.
And so it appears that there's room in the code as is written to do that.
Mm-hmm. And maybe Shannon's suggestion is part of it, but, you know, anyway, it's
Yeah,
something
so
that,
if developers would put on notice that, okay, 5 years down the road or whatever time limit, if your actions have caused the death of this tree, you're still on the hook for the caliper
Yeah.
branches.
I think, I'm going to try to find the OSU study that looked at this. They were talking like for really large trees, it's like 8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
For big oaks. But anyway, food for thought. Okay, what's next here? Oh, yeah, 116807, replacement of removed trees. We talked about the city-owned parks. Schedule of fees. Now, at the meeting, a couple meetings ago, there's nothing in our fee schedule. So my question is, has the city been out of compliance with 1168.07 for all these years?
That's what we talked about at the beginning of the meeting, is that's where that we need to include that, and that's something they brought up that they would include this fall, is putting that in the tree schedule.
Okay, so that's gonna happen, good.
Yeah.
But is the removal permit already in the fee structure, or are there two things that have to be added?
I have to look at the fee structure, I'm not sure about.
Tree
The caliper is what we're talking about, the caliper, the $100 for caliper.
Right, but there's also a fee for tree clearance permit, which we talked about being a flat fee. Is that in there
Right,
too?
Right. Yeah, I missed that.
Yeah, you can keep going, I'll look for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, now, the next item I have, size of replacement trees.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm actually
Found-
making a concession here.
Before you go on, Paul, their tree clearance permit is $150.
Okay,
Flat,
flat fee,
okay,
and it is in there, so it's just,
all right. 150. Okay, size of replacement trees. I'm going to make a concession here. I don't think there needs to be a clear trunk height of at least 6 feet, because if you prune branches too early, then you end up with a weaker trunk. Dave, wouldn't you agree with that? If you have
That's true.
if you have an 1 3/4 tree, caliper tree, and you prune off all the little stuff up to 6 feet, I think you're going to end up with a weaker trunk. So I would say you leave them on for a year or two.
I
before
don't
pruning
think
them
that the
off.
ones that we're planning, the replacement trees the city are planning meet those
They,
requirements.
no way do they meet
Yeah,
those requirements.
I don't know if you
So-
can buy trees that meet that requirement, can you?
What's that?
Um,
6,
At a 2-inch caliber, I think most of the time when developers go out and they buy trees for streets, they're already shaped and pruned at the nursery.
Exactly, right.
For a sidewalk clearance, and that's what that's about typically.
But I don't see them being 6 feet.
No, the containerized stuff that.
I mean, the ones
cities
that we-
Replacing,
Yeah.
typically not.
No. So I don't think we need to have the 6 feet thing. What's your opinion on this? And Ted, what do you think?
Well, I think it's a maintenance issue. I think,
But it's not always going to be, since, it's going to be pruned eventually. It's not, I mean, for a couple of years, 1 or 2 years, so that the trunk can be a little stronger.
I would honestly defer to Doug on this.
Okay,
I would.
that's
I would wait
cool.
for his
Yeah,
advice,
that's a good idea. We'll do that.
Because it would be him and his crew doing
Yeah.
the pruning on the street trees, and I don't want
That's
to
a good
speak
idea.
for him.
That's a good idea. Okay. Then underneath 116808, exemptions from replacement. Again, it's not the Director of Planning and Community Development. It's Doug who should figure out if the tree is diseased, damaged, or dead, damaged, or diseased. Undesirable species. And again, the same with all the trees to be used as replacement. That should be Doug or Ted. Okay, and then getting down to D, down towards the bottom of that page. The developer shall be required to maintain all replacement trees for 2 years after the trees are planted and to replace any tree that dies within such 2-year guarantee period according to the following. It should be more than 2 years, and are they even doing that?
Yes,
They are?
yes.
Yeah, 2 years is uncommon.
Is it?
Anyway,
It's
yeah, it's
usually a
usually a
year.
year, so 2
Yeah.
years. We're doing better as a city for 2 years than.
So you guys okay with that one?
Yeah, and Doug's got a list and he'll go out and check. It's kind of like
Okay.
after 2 years up, he goes out and checks them.
Oh, okay, that's cool. So I don't need to worry about that one. All right, that's good. The next page, B. A final inspection, first, a final inspection shall be made in the 2-year guarantee program, period. All trees not exhibiting a healthy, vigorous growing condition shall be replaced at the expense of the developer or builder. How do we define exhibiting healthy, vigorous growing condition? Is that a Doug question?
Well, yeah, it's a Doug question, but it's also a Doug discretion.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
And, that's kind of why we rely on him is to make
Okay.
that call.
gotcha. Because I know what my definition of healthy and vigorous might be different from someone else's, so. Okay, so that's okay. Okay, and then I had a question down at the bottom. This is the last thing, you'll be pleased to know. The required tree preservation plan coordinated with all landscaping required by Chapter 1166. I haven't had a chance to look at Chapter 1166. I don't know what's in it, but I'm just wondering if any of that might be something that we should look at. I don't know, so.
1166 in part for us is part of the number of trees per curb footage and that sort of thing.
Oh, and
So
distance
it's
from
every
stop
30 feet or
signs
40
and
feet
stuff like that.
That's kind of what that is.
Okay,
for
okay,
us.
okay.
There's a bunch more in there, but that's,
Yeah.
All right, so that's pretty much like civil engineering type stuff.
It's like distance triangles and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's what I have. Thanks for listening.
And in here somewhere is the point about, it shall, that the, because I know it was a question, Tom, that you had once, a couple meetings ago about if property owners are required to maintain their landscaping plans as per, and that is true,
Beyond 2
they
years,
certainly
yeah.
are, yeah. After the 2 years, the property owner or the business owner is required to maintain the landscaping as per original intent, not necessarily original design, but
What about maintaining healthy and vigorous growing condition?
I can't remember the language exactly, but they're required to maintain their landscaping, I know that. So if a tree dies, they're required to replace it.
Well, Ted's response
Am I correct about that?
was different, if you remember. If a tree dies after 2 years, the example I gave was a car dealer, that had their trees sitting there, that were planted maybe 10 years ago. Ted's interpretation was the dealer does not have to replace these trees because they died of natural causes, maybe due to neglect. But so your interpretation, to me, that's still an open question.
Okay.
I would agree with you. I would welcome clarity on whether or not a developer, the owner of a business, needs to maintain the original landscaping for forever. Because they could just stop watering, let things die, and then claim natural death, and then they are off the hook. To me, that is not in the spirit of our tree ordinances. The spirit is,
Tom, I was just talking.
the canopy of the.
There's exceptions to that, and that's the safety is an exception.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And if a tree dies of natural causes. So I was just reading those exceptions out of the code when we talked about that last time, when you asked that question.
Okay. So are you then in agreement with Dave's interpretation lastly?
What would you say again, Dave?
Oh, well, I thought it was in here somewhere, in 1168.
No, I was trying to read, because I know Tom asked that last time, and I looked it up, and I can't remember where, but it was in the code. It was right out of the code.
It was in that email, but it was
Yeah.
from,
There's exceptions to that.
that there are, okay.
Yeah. And I don't know, I mean, Tom, you mentioned the watering a tree. I mean, wouldn't expect someone to water a tree for the life of the tree.
Yeah, well, yeah, once the tree's mature,
Yeah,
you can stop
yeah.
watering.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Dead, damaged, or disease. Yeah, so yeah, that's true. 1168.08 is exemptions from replacement. Dead, damaged, or diseased. That's pretty sweeping, so. Damage to life or property.
Or, yeah, and the other exemption
Well, you're
is,
exempt from.
is non-natives.
Well, I'm
Well,
concerned,
they're exempt from the fee structure of the removal of a major tree. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're exempt from the landscaping plan. I see that as two different things, but I can look into that a little bit more.
well, I'm concerned about an owner, a property owner deliberately neglecting the landscaping and let everything die. To me, that would be against the letter and spirit, of our tree ordinances as I interpret them. Now, not many business owners will do that. They love to have a beautiful, landscaping around their business, clearly. But how can we be sure that people don't take advantage of that? They want to save on expenses, on landscaping expenses, and they just let everything die.
I have a question related to that, but it was another just a point of clarification. So as I've read this, it seems like it's and most of our conversation has been directed toward developers. We tend to think of, the commercial or even residential large developers, but how this might affect a single homeowner on a regular city lot. So my specific question is on the second page, 1168.02 under applicability, this chapter shall not apply to single-family residential lots of less than 2 acres that existed prior to the date this provision takes effect. So as I read that,
Yeah.
anything, like Dave Carey, who built his house in 2007, does.
Oh, he's responsible.
Yeah, so there's a
But
grandfather
me,
clause.
who have lived in my house for much longer, would not be. Is that,
Yeah, I think that's a typical grandfather clause for the people that have been in place before, is what would interpret that as.
so if I wanted to do something on my property and cut down lots of large trees, I'm exempt from this,
Ooh, good eye, Susan.
but Dave would not be.
That ain't right.
Yeah, I didn't read the rest of that sentence. All right.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's gotta be.
I think there's like an or something that needs to be in there, or a clause.
Yeah, it may be.
That's a huge difference.
Well, it made me, what am I missing here? Is there a missing word or?
No, you're right.
So that's the middle of '04.
Oh, no, I am exempt. I closed on my house in 03.
So never mind.
On to the next thing.
Well, it also sort of,
Don't you cut it.
if you've been in here, if you've been in Delaware long enough, you don't have to pay attention, but you could live in a big old property, but be a new homeowner. I mean, you're new to that property, so I think that I'm missing what the real intent of this is.
Mm-hmm.
Did you mean to word it that way?
I don't know what the real intent, but I would imagine when they first did this, they wanted to, protect the people that were already in place so that they could, as going forward, they would institute the code. But I'd have to ask on that one. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And it may be something, if it's updated, then maybe this can come out or something at that point, or it can be redefined. But I understand your question.
Yeah. But more generally, how does this affect just a regular homeowner who might want to be doing something on their property?
I would be interested to know how many lots are over 2 acres also.
Right.
There aren't many, but there are some.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
there
are
are certainly
few.
some out on Bromiller and.
There are
Yeah,
some.
there are a few.
And why should they be grandfathered in? But is the purpose of this? I mean, I don't know, if I lived on a lot that size and I wanted to, pull a permit to put up a pole barn, that would come into question.
Yeah,
Hey, could you
yeah.
put it elsewhere? We'd really like you to have this big tree. No, I
Yeah,
would not.
yeah.
I bought this lot and this home because I foresaw this in my future. I get that you're all tree huggers and I like my trees too, but this was the only lot available to me and there just happens to be this great big tree sitting on the middle of it. And that's where I want to put a pavilion or a pole barn or, so I don't know. I get, I'm being a devil's advocate here. I get when we're talking about large scale development or commercial use, but a private owner, I don't know.
We have had plans for a private owner.
Mhm.
In the past couple of years, I remember Doug saying, hey, there's this guy who wanted to do this and this, but it's the exact same situation, addition to the house or something like that. And so they had a tree associated with it. And so.
It's unfortunate, but I can see why now the verbiage of this can create, maybe, I guess we're just looking for clarification. I'm not cutting any of my giant trees down, just FYI. I'm leaving them up. I have a tiny little lot. I don't have any giant ones. I have a lot of big catalpas.
Catalpas used to be really popular back in the old days, like Victorian times.
Well, they're still beautiful. At the
Oh, I
beginning
love
of June, my
I
yard
love
looks like there was a wedding there because of all those blooms just
I
dropping
think
all
they're
over
very
in half
cool.
of the yard.
Um, It's 8:30 now. I'm just checking with everybody to see how we're feeling about the progress that we've made so far and what you think. Should we continue with this? Should we chew on it mentally for a while? Should,
Well,
you think we're off to a good start?
what's the end game? I mean, I guess I missed the preamble, which is, okay, so is council definitely looking to,
No, they're not definitely. I mean, but if this board wants to make a recommendation to them, they definitely will consider it.
okay, so this would start with us.
Okay,
Well, and start with us and the planning commission. I think several boards would contribute.
Right, but as with respect to,
Yeah.
okay, these
Yeah,
are,
and at the end game is kind of, do you think this code needs updated? I guess
that's the preamble.
yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
pretty much.
well,
Very good.
and a couple meetings ago at city council, when they took that one sentence out, that very controversial sentence about the $100 per caliper inch. The emphasis at that meeting was that, hey, we're gonna have a chance to look at and finally include it in the fee schedule so that it's in its proper place. We're gonna separate out the issue Chapter 1168 issue and do a comprehensive evaluation of the tree replacement policy for update. And that was the expectation that was put forward at the time. And that's, so we don't have to be in a rush or anything.
Okay.
But I think that fall is when that's going to happen, Ted.
Well, there are two different things you're talking about.
Yeah, I know.
The
Yeah.
fee schedule will happen in the fall.
Yeah,
And then if there's some changes that you want to recommend on the tree preservation, then, I mean, that could happen at any time. I mean,
okay, okay.
and-
But the reason that particular sentence got taken out of 0.07 or
Mhm.
whatever that
Yeah, the date, yeah.
was so to, at least what we were told was that it would make it simpler, the language simpler and more clear and make it easier to do what we're doing now, and that's update and clarify the entire policy, because it hasn't changed for so long. Look what, all the things that we've looked through here tonight, and this is our chance to do that, to clarify all this stuff.
Thank you.
And I've got some questions now, I guess, from what we talked about tonight too, that I have to get some clarification on too, to get back with you on, so. It is something, if we wanted to take a break from it and move on, and then I could get some clarification on some of those items, we could revisit this.
Yeah,
Unless you want to keep going, or,
Yeah, I'd say we would need to move on if we want to get out of here.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I don't think we have a whole lot left, but okay, let's, all right. Let's go ahead, staff comments. Okay, are there any member comments tonight about anything that we haven't talked about yet so far?
I have a member comment.
Mhm.
And we were talking, a few of us at, gosh, I think it was when we were at the Y, about a little PR. I know we do a lot, we do our big spring push, we do the Now Watershed Festival, we do the Arbor Day celebration that we squeeze in with Healthy Kids Day at the Y, and we plant a tree. And then we do the first Friday, at least one. And what I have noticed in all of those, invariably somebody says, what is the Shade Tree Commission? What is it?
Mhm.
And that's wonderful. That creates dialogue. Well, what I was thinking, if we're going to keep planting a tree every year on Arbor Day, what better thing for the Shade Tree Commission to do, not only plant a tree, but to educate and use a little PR. At different locations, there are tree stakes with a placard on them that tells you the botanical and the common name of a tree. I think it'd be really nice for some of the ceremonial trees that we're putting in the ground, if they do not already have something as such. We could have a placard, and the verbiage could be what have you, in honor of Arbor Day 2017.
Mhm.
This is a Quercus shumardii, the Shumard oak. That is what we planted, isn't it? Okay. And then, and then dedicated or, well, sure not dedicated by us, is it? It's more of a city thing, right? But either way, Shade Tree Commission at the bottom. And I mean, we do have this fund. I mean, I'm not sure how much these placards cost, but I'll tell you what, when I was studying trees, it's really nice to show up at any given location, park-like setting. And if you go,
looking at.
and maybe even in the dead of winter, or if you don't know as much as some of us do know about trees and go, I'd really like to have that kind of tree in my yard. I wonder what it is.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I just,
Good idea.
I think it would be, I mean, it is a bit of PR, but it also is educational for the community.
Mhm.
And we're planting these trees. I'd like to do more than walk away, leave a little something that promotes the Shade Tree Commission.
Just to add to that, one thing I would, and I think it's a great idea. The only thing I wouldn't like to see is placards at just different spots. Is there any way to look at like more of an arboretum type of setting where you could like take a tour of a park and go through several different varieties
And
of
that's
trees?
that's the
Yeah, like a long-term
long-term
goal,
effect,
yes,
right? So when
yes.
we do have these Arbor Day plantings, we can now have, cut down trees pressed into paper,
Mhm.
but we can have a guide or something that says, this year, 2013, 14, or 15, these are what we've planted, even if they're the same. I know 2 years in a row we've done the Shumardii
Mhm.
oaks, but that's okay. But that's what I was foreseeing. And since I feel like since I've been on this commission, we've leaned towards the Y and the Veterans Park. It might make sense.
And they need a lot of trees out there. It's
Right,
like
we're just
barren.
we're just hitting the
Yeah, we moved out that, well, partly it was timing, but Bicentennial Park was full. And there may very well be some plaques out in Bicentennial Park.
There are, actually, every tree that we planted has a little plaque. Arbor Day 2014, Ginkgo tree, Ginkgo biloba,
Mhm.
Shumard oak. But, the plaques are pretty small. Maybe you're talking about something bigger.
I'm
something more
thinking something,
educational.
when you're going to Chadwick Arboretum at Ohio State.
Mhm.
I mean, of course, it is an arboretum, but why shouldn't we lean towards the arboretum environment ourselves? I mean, I know when we went to Tree City USA, not this past year, I didn't attend, but the previous year, I mean, is it Bexley? It's the only
It is
city that is
Bexley, yes,
actually, the whole city is an
City
arboretum.
arboretum, yeah.
Now, I know I'm reaching for the stars here, and I'm not going to say in my few years I've volunteered here, we're going to reach that or what have you, but it would really be nice to have a similar plaque. I think it's, we couldn't go wrong with it.
I think the Y would be a great spot
No,
because of the
down
traffic.
Yeah.
And the educational
Yeah.
opportunity
Yeah.
for a wide range of people
Mhm.
going in and out of there.
Delaware already has two arboretums. One is on the Ohio Wesleyan campus, lots of, plaques. The other one is cemetery, of course, where I think it was Boy Scouts who put up plaques and identified trees and put up plaques. But I think it's a wonderful idea, the whole why, long term, over a period of 10, 20, 30 years. We could develop the whole area as an arboretum, as an educational arboretum where, school classes could go, and identify trees and learn about, Arbor Day and so on.
Awesome.
I think it's a great idea. We're gonna have to plant something more than Schumacher stuff.
Yeah, we might need to diversify for sure. But anyway, we would do that regardless. That's just smart planting and, I'm sure we would all be on board for that. So that's my PR. I feel like we need some more permanent PR. I think we're all good at showing up and talking, but if it's not pouring down rain and 38 degrees out, we can get the word out.
That's a good idea.
Thank you.
Any other member comments? Oh, yeah, I just thought of something. Dave, getting back to your question, what's the end game of all this? Remember several meetings ago, when George was still with us, he told us about the BIA exerting pressure, and this is to solidify and just be ready for the oncoming lobbying efforts of the BIA as well.
Very good.
Okay. Any other member comments?
Well, maybe, since we are talking about the BIA, let me find a piece of paper. Maybe I cannot find it at the moment. Too much stuff here, yes. Quite a few people were concerned about the BIA putting pressure on the city. It is a trade association that lobbies on behalf of developers, of course, and contractors. And so I was concerned about that. There have been a number of emails, etc. I did receive a response from City Council member Lisa Keller about that, and I wanted to read, to quote something from that. Her email, of course, is public information, so I'm not about anything personal. In fact, she might be pleased to hear that I'm quoting her at this meeting. So Lisa Keller wrote to me on May 22nd, yesterday. I too had some concerns regarding meetings being conducted by the BIA, the Building Industry Association, and city staff. My concern was primarily that the BIA would attempt to exert pressure on our city staff regarding our development procedures. I requested an invite to participate and was involved in several meetings with the BIA and city staff. I discovered the BIA was making requests regarding our city's processes. The planning department remained in staunch opposition to any change that took direction away from the city council. BIA had suggested the elimination of city council from the approval process. The BIA was instructed that procedural changes to assist with some paperwork and process concerns to help bring clarity to the process could be discussed, but in capital letters, but policy changes need to be requested of council, in public meetings and open to public input and participation. And maybe this is the most important sentence that I felt reassured me to some extent. Through my participation in these meetings, I can assure you, Tom, or the public, our planning department exhibited the greatest degree of professionalism and accountability, both in the way they conducted themselves, and how they handled the requests of the BIA. So Lisa Keller says, yes, the BIA indeed tried to exert pressure, had certain requests and made certain demands, but the Planning Commission remained in staunch opposition to that. They stood firm, they stood their ground, and did not budge. So that is. I was concerned about people being too amenable, to quote a word from a previous document, to the requests of the BIA. But I'm pleased and gratified to hear that that my concerns and the concerns of others were maybe not, warranted. So I wanted to bring that, to share that with you.
Great, thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
That is good news. That's great. Anyone else have any member comments? Okay, and So Ted, you're saying that we're going to wait till Doug gets back before we do the plan reviews?
Yeah,
We'll do
we've
that
got a
next-
few plan reviews.
Yeah.
I think we've got about 4 of them maybe.
Okay.
So I didn't want to, and I've let everybody know that we're just going to put those on hold until Doug gets back.
Yeah.
And
How's
then-
he doing, by the way?
He's doing good. The surgery was successful. He's just recovering at this point. So
Is he feeling okay? Like,
yeah, he's
Good.
feeling, and he's looking in, he's going through therapy now, but
okay.
hopefully it won't be too long and he'll be back. But just kind of wanted to wait for him to review those before we brought them to this board.
Gotcha. Okay.
And everybody knows that they're delayed at this point.
Okay, then, move to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
It's okay.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.